Now, Nintendo's known for being incredibly creative, and sometimes they really are. A good example is a game like Super Mario Odyssey. However, before that, they could also be very lazy. Think of games like New Super Mario Bros. U, where barely anything changed. Sure, some new things here and there, but compared to the latest 3D Super Mario title, it's nothing special. And this also goes for the bosses. At some point they started to use the koopalings a lot. A bit too much in my opinion. However, a long time ago Nintendo did make a lot of original and interesting bosses that people largely forgot about. And today we will finally have a look at my favorites. So let's dive right in. Number 5. Now, while I sometimes complain about the new Super Mario Bros. Games because they got incredibly stale later on, there's actually one of them that did some amazing things. The very first game in the series. It tried to revive the 2D Mario genre after years of neglection, and it did all of this pretty well. And one thing seen in this game was very interesting. The custom bosses that were rarely seen or only once. And there's one of them that stands out, the mummy Pokey. This is a mummified Pokey with red spikes along with a bear trap-like jaw from which he spits projectiles. Now, during the fight, he attacks by popping out of the ground at different places throughout the arena. And when it sees you, in no time some sort of ball is flying towards you that was shot by the mummy Pokey. And if you get hit by it, you take damage. Aside from that, his body is also covered with nasty spikes. And as you can imagine, coming into contact with those also hurts. Now, in order to defeat it, you must jump on his head 3 times. And by ground pounding, it will reduce the number even more. Now, all of this sounds pretty easy, but it can be quite hard. And that's all because the height of how far Mummy Pokey protrudes varies, ranging from 2 to 5 segments, including the head. And the time he stays surfaced is dependent on his size. So if he's incredibly tall, he will stay longer. And all of this can make the fight hard, because reaching him is really tricky at times. Heck, sometimes wall jumps are even required to get high enough. So it can be hard, especially with all those spikes that cover his body. And you gotta be fast, because in no time you will dive back down into the sand and pop up somewhere else. Luckily enough, you can make it all a bit easier by shooting him with 15 fireballs, or just using a Mega Mushroom. But interestingly enough, you can also get further in the game by using the Mini Mushroom, because if you defeat him with that power-up, you get access to World 4. This is something we rarely see. You actually get a reward for making the fight harder. And personally, I like that. In general, this whole fight is refreshing. We've never seen a Pokey boss before, and I gotta say they did a good job with this one. The fact that it varies in terms of height really makes the fight interesting, because it plays well into the whole platformer game concept. You need to jump on him after all, and the taller he gets, the harder it becomes. And so you have to come up with extra steps to get high enough, like wall jumping. But the next time he pops up, he's a lot shorter, and so you have to adjust your strategy, because otherwise you will jump over him or even into him and get hurt. And you also have to do this pretty fast, otherwise your efforts are wasted. And that's what I like about this boss fight. It did something new and did all of this pretty darn well. Number 4. Now, aside from the first new Super Mario Bros. Game, there were also other games that had custom bosses that were only seen once. And the first Super Mario Land was also a great example of this, because the whole game was even set in a completely different world. And here we encounter one boss that I like the most by far, and it's called Dragon Zamasu, which is the second boss in the game. He's in charge of the Muda Kingdom and was brainwashed by Tatanga during his invasion of Sarasa Land. Now in battle, he attacks by spitting fire at you, and to defeat him you need to shoot at him while dodging Tamayo, who floats around the arena and can block shots. However, there's also another way of winning. You can get rid of the blocks in the bottom right corner of the arena, and activating the switch behind these blocks will also get rid of him. Overall, the fight is pretty simple. That's quite obvious. But so far, I have left one important thing out. This is not a normal Super Mario fight at all. And that's because in the game there are certain levels that are more similar to a linear arcade shooter than a platformer. In levels like this you're driving either the Marine Pop, which is a submarine that can fire torpedoes, or the Sky Pop, which is an airplane that can shoot missiles. And during the fight with this boss you use the submarine to shoot torpedoes at him in order to progress. And that's what I like about this boss. The whole fight and level is a linear arcade shooter, which we only saw in this game sadly enough. And personally, I really liked it. These segments were really fun, and the bosses at the end were iconic for this game, as well as the arcade shooter style. It was something truly different during that era. Remember, this game came out in 1989, and at that point, the Mario games were quite basic. So a boss like this in a level like this was something new and very fun in my opinion. However, no one really remembers them. Number 3. Now, one of the most popular 2D Super Mario games is certainly Super Mario World, and there's one boss in this game that not everyone knows about, the Big Boo, who isn't the boss you normally encounter, and that's because he is a hidden boss only found in the secret door of the Donut Secret House. Now, during the fight he has 2 normal Boos with him, and the way he behaves is slightly different from that of other Big Boos. He floats in the air above and around Mario in a downward arching pattern, rather than chasing him, and does not even stop when being looked at. Now he can only be injured when he's visible, and you have to throw a grab block at him at the right moment. And once hurt, he puts his hands on his face and becomes almost invisible so Mario cannot injure him again. He then moves somewhere else and reappears trying to attack you once again. And after being hit 3 times, he is defeated. And once he is gone, a new path is revealed on the overworld, leading to the Star World. Now again, this boss isn't too special. His tactics are quite simplistic, however the fact that it's hidden makes it interesting. And while it seems quite simplistic, it can actually be pretty hard to deal with the extra boos, while also trying to hit the Big Boo. You need to juggle all those things at the same time, and hitting the Big Boo with those blocks isn't that easy as well. In general, the fight with him is very different from all others in the game, where you just jump on them or shoot fireballs at them. However, hitting Big Boo is hard compared to that. So I like the challenge and the fact that it's a secret. Number 2. Now, do you remember how this video started? You know, the cool custom bosses of New Super Mario Bros? Well, for our number 2, we will look at another one of these. And this time, it's the Monty Tank, who is the boss of World 6. Now, this boss is basically a Monty Mole in a tank, and you win the fight by stomping on the Monty's head 3 times. And his head is exposed when he comes out of the tank to throw bombs at you. And you can also throw these back to deal damage. And each time the tank is hit, it will spin, quickly move back and forth, an alarm goes off, and it fires bullet bills from its turrets. And aside from that, one more level is added to the tank each time, making it taller and giving it more cannons as well. So you're basically fighting a tank, and the only way of winning is by taking out the driver of this tank. And this whole fight is pretty hard because you can't damage the tank whatsoever, and every time it gets taller and taller and taller. Aside from that, you're almost constantly bombarded with bullet bills and other explosives. So it challenges you in interesting ways. It forces you to constantly keep an eye out for all kinds of threats, and then use your platforming abilities to dodge them. And then after that, you have to use those exact same abilities again to get on top of the tank to take out the driver. And I think all of this works pretty darn well. Personally, I really struggled with this fight, but that's not a bad thing. In the end, this boss fight offers something that almost no other in the series offers. And for that, I love it. Number 1. Now, while both Super Mario World and Land had some cool and unique bosses, there was another that had this as well, Super Mario Land 2. This is my favorite 2D Mario game ever, and there are a lot of great bosses in this title. To be honest, I would love to talk about all of them. However, if I had to pick one, then it would be the 3 little pigs who were seen in the Mario Zone. Now, each pig has a different house they reside in and have their own attack patterns. The first has a straw house and attacks by rolling back and forth along the screen. The second has a wooden house and tries to pounce on Mario by jumping around. And the last one in the brick house also attacks by jumping, but it leaps a bit higher every time. Now each one can be defeated by jumping on them 3 times or hitting them with 6 fireballs. And once one is defeated, the next one starts attacking. So you're basically fighting them in rounds. And as you could have guessed, each of these pigs in their houses are based on the classic fairy tale, The Three Little Pigs. According to a Nintendo Power Guide, the pigs were waiting their entire lives for a huffing, puffing wolf, and believed that Mario is after their home. Now personally, I like this fight because it's unique. However, there's more to it all, because it's also challenging in a good way. All of them have a different tactic, and one by one they test your platforming skills, because this whole fight comes down to 2 things: dodging and timing your jumps. Because they roll and jump back and forth, forcing you to dodge them, because otherwise you take damage. And then you still have to time your jumps in order to get a hit in. And while this can be tricky, even I struggled with it a lot, it does offer a challenge that fits incredibly well with the platformer genre, and slowly gets more and more intense. So in short, this boss is amazing, but we never saw anything like it ever again. But now, we've reached the end of this video. So, be sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and destroy that bell. Then you won't miss anything.